at my poor ex. Still broke, still a nobody after all these years.
The entire ballroom went silent when my ex-wife looked at me and laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a surprised laugh. The kind of laugh someone gives when they believe they already know your entire story. "Wait, you're telling everyone you're successful now?" She looked around the room at our old classmates, smiling like she had just uncovered the biggest joke of the night. "Come on, Marcus. We all know who you are." 8 years had passed since our divorce. 8 years since she walked away because she believed I would never become the man she wanted. And standing there under the crystal chandeliers of the Chicago Grand Hotel, she still saw the same person she left behind. The struggling entrepreneur. The man who worked late nights. The man who wore simple clothes. The man she thought had failed. She had no idea that 2 days earlier, my company had been valued at over $3 billion. She had no idea that the quiet man she was embarrassing in front of everyone had become one of the youngest infrastructure investors in the country. But I didn't tell her, because I learned something a long time ago. People who have already decided your worth don't listen to explanations. They only believe results. My name is Marcus Bennett. I'm 43 years old. And for most of my life, I believed success was something you had to announce. I was wrong. Real success is something you build quietly until one day people cannot ignore it anymore. 8 years earlier, I stood in the same city with nothing but a small apartment, a broken heart, and a dream nobody believed in. My ex-wife, Vanessa, wanted a different life, a bigger house, a richer husband, a man who could give her the lifestyle she saw other women posting online. And I couldn't blame her for wanting more. But I never expected her to believe that my value depended on how much money I had in my account. The night she left, she packed her belongings while I sat at the kitchen table. She looked at me and said something I never forgot. "Marcus, you're a good person, but being good isn't enough." Those words stayed with me, not because they destroyed me, because they challenged me. After she left, I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I didn't call her family. I simply got to work. I spent the next 8 years building something nobody could see. One contract, one mistake, one lesson, one victory at a time. And now, years later, I found myself standing across from the woman who once told me I would never become anything. The school reunion was supposed to be simple, a night to reconnect with old friends, a night to remember the past. I almost didn't attend. My assistant told me, "Marcus, you don't need to prove anything to people from 20 years ago." She was right. I had a company. I had employees who depended on me. I had investments across multiple industries. And most importantly, I had peace. But something inside me wanted to close that chapter. So I put on a dark suit, drove downtown, and walked into that ballroom alone. At first, everything was normal. Old classmates, old stories, people comparing careers, families, and achievements. Then I saw Vanessa. She was standing near the bar with her new husband, Daniel. The same confident smile, the same way of looking at people like she was ranking them. Her eyes landed on me. For a moment she looked surprised. Then she smiled. "Marcus?" I nodded. "Vanessa." She looked me up and down, noticed my simple watch, my plain suit, my calm expression, and she made her decision immediately. "So," she tilted her head, "still doing those small business projects?" A few people nearby turned to listen. I smiled. "I run a company now." She laughed softly. A company?" Daniel smiled beside her. "That's interesting." The way he said it made it clear he didn't mean interesting. He meant impossible. Vanessa crossed her arms. "You know, Marcus, I always wondered what happened to you." She paused. "Honestly, I thought you would have changed." I looked at her. "I did." She laughed again. "No, I mean actually changed." The people around her smiled. They were waiting for the old Marcus, the man who would get defensive, the man who would explain himself. But that man was gone. "Things worked out," I said. Vanessa shook her head. "That's the thing about you. You always had these huge dreams." She looked at the crowd. "Remember? Marcus was always talking about building something massive." Someone laughed. "Nah, yeah, I remember that," Vanessa continued. "Well, some dreams are just dreams." The room got quieter, and then she said the words she would regret. "Be honest, Marcus. Did you come here tonight just to pretend you made it? A few people looked uncomfortable. I didn't, because I knew something they didn't. The next 5 minutes would change how everyone in that room saw me forever. Because standing outside the ballroom doors was someone Vanessa had never met. Someone carrying the one thing she never expected. Proof. Not a speech. Not revenge. Proof. The doors opened, and every conversation stopped. Because the woman who walked into that room wasn't just my wife. She was the person who knew the truth about everything Vanessa thought she understood. And Vanessa was about to discover that the man she left behind had become someone she could never reach again. The ballroom doors opened slowly. At first, nobody recognized her. She walked in wearing a simple but elegant black dress, her hair perfectly styled, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who never needed attention to enter a room. But attention found her anyway. The conversations around the ballroom faded. People turned. Whispers started spreading. Isn't that? Wait, that's Olivia Bennett. Vanessa's smile disappeared, because she knew that name. Everyone did. Olivia Bennett was known across the city for her foundation work, funding education programs, rebuilding neighborhoods, and supporting thousands of families. But Vanessa didn't understand why she was walking directly toward me until Olivia reached me. She smiled. Sorry I'm late. Then she kissed my cheek. That meeting took longer than expected. The room went completely silent. Vanessa stared. Daniel looked confused, and one by one, everyone began connecting the pieces. Olivia looked around. Am I interrupting something? Nobody answered. Vanessa finally found her voice. She looked at me. You're Marcus's wife? Olivia smiled. Yes. The woman who had spent the last 10 minutes trying to convince everyone I was still struggling suddenly had no words. Vanessa forced a laugh. Oh. She looked between us. I didn't know. Olivia held my hand. Most people don't. That sentence hit harder than an insult. Because it was true. I had spent years building my life quietly. I didn't announce every success. I didn't need strangers to approve of me. Vanessa looked at me again. So what exactly do you do now, Marcus? The question sounded different this time. Less like curiosity, more like fear. I answered calmly. I build companies. She waited. I continued. My company develops infrastructure projects across the country. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Which company? I told him, and the expression on his face changed instantly, because he knew the name. Everyone in business knew the name. The company that had recently won some of the largest private infrastructure contracts in the country. The company that had been featured in financial magazines. The company valued at billions. Vanessa looked at Daniel. Wait. She turned back to me. That's your company? I nodded. The room became uncomfortable, because suddenly everyone remembered how the conversation started. The jokes, the comments, the assumptions. Vanessa tried to smile. Marcus, that's amazing. I'm happy for you. But her voice didn't sound happy. It sounded like someone trying to accept a reality they didn't want. I simply nodded. Thank you. I didn't need to say anything else, because success has a strange way of introducing itself. Then I noticed something. Daniel wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at Vanessa, and the confidence he had earlier was gone, because there was something he didn't know, something even Vanessa didn't know. My legal team had discovered his name months earlier, not because of Vanessa, because of business. Daniel had been involved with several questionable investment deals, and one of those deals almost affected one of my company's projects. But I never said anything. I handled it professionally, quietly, the same way I handled everything else. Vanessa noticed Daniel becoming uncomfortable. Is everything okay? He didn't answer, and that was when my old classmate Rachel stepped forward. Rachel had always been different. She was the person who noticed things others ignored. She looked at Vanessa. Actually, there is something everyone should know. Vanessa frowned. Rachel, don't. But Rachel continued. 8 years ago, everyone thought Marcus lost everything after the divorce. She looked around the room. But the truth is, he was rebuilding. Nobody spoke. Rachel looked at me, and while everyone was talking about what Marcus didn't have, he was quietly helping people. She revealed something I never told anyone. For the last 6 years, Marcus has funded scholarships at our old high school. The room reacted instantly. What? Marcus? Rachel nodded. The students who received those scholarships never knew his name because he requested anonymity. Vanessa stared at me. "You did that?" I looked away. It wasn't about recognition. And that was the moment something changed, because money had impressed people, but character affected them. Vanessa had spent years believing she left a man who wasn't enough. Now she was realizing she had walked away from someone who was becoming everything she claimed she wanted. But Rachel wasn't finished. She turned toward Daniel. And while we're talking about the truth, Daniel's face changed. Because he knew exactly what was coming. Rachel continued. "Some people spend their lives building." She paused. "And some people spend their lives pretending." The room became silent. Daniel stepped forward. "Rachel, be careful." But she didn't stop. 2 years ago, someone tried to manipulate a contract connected to Marcus's company. Vanessa looked confused. "What are you talking about?" Rachel looked directly at Daniel. "Ask your husband." The entire room froze. Vanessa slowly turned toward him. "Daniel?" He said nothing. And for the first time that night, Vanessa wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the man she chose instead. The man she thought represented success. The man she defended for 8 years. And she was about to discover the biggest mistake she ever made. Because the person she abandoned had become a billionaire. But the person she trusted had been hiding something much darker. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The music continued playing softly in the background, but the ballroom no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like everyone was waiting for the truth to finally come out. Vanessa looked at Daniel. "Is she telling the truth?" Daniel looked around the room. For the first time that night, he wasn't confident. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't the man standing beside Vanessa pretending he had everything figured out. He was just a man who had been exposed. "Vanessa, don't listen to this." But his voice didn't carry the same strength anymore. Rachel shook her head. "That's exactly what he said when my office started reviewing the paperwork." Vanessa's expression changed. "What paperwork?" Daniel stayed quiet, and that silence answered the question before he did. I watched Vanessa carefully. Not because I wanted to see her suffer, but because I wanted to understand something. How could someone spend 8 years believing they chose the better life, only to discover they had been chasing an illusion? Rachel continued. "Daniel wasn't involved with the company directly. He created a chain of fake vendors and attempted to redirect part of a subcontract." A few people gasped. Daniel immediately stepped forward. "That's ridiculous." Rachel didn't react. "The investigation cleared Marcus's company because his team caught it before anything happened." Vanessa looked at Daniel. "You told me you were successful because you were smart." Daniel looked away. "I am successful." The desperation in his voice was obvious, but nobody believed him anymore. Vanessa lowered her voice. "You told me Marcus was just lucky." I stayed silent, because I remembered those words. 8 years earlier, when Vanessa left, she told me something I never forgot. "Daniel understands how the world works, Marcus. You just work hard and hope." At the time, those words hurt. Now they didn't, because I finally understood something. Some people confuse shortcuts with success. They see someone climbing slowly and assume they are losing. They don't understand that strong foundations take longer to build. Vanessa looked at me. Her eyes were different now. Not the eyes of someone judging me. The eyes of someone remembering. "I don't understand." Her voice became softer. "How did you do all this?" I looked at her. Same way I did everything else. I paused. "One day at a time." She shook her head. "But why didn't you tell anyone?" I smiled slightly. "Because I wasn't trying to prove you wrong." The room became quiet. I was trying to prove myself right. That sentence stayed there, because everyone understood it. The real victory wasn't becoming richer than the people who doubted me. The real victory was becoming someone who no longer needed their approval. Vanessa looked down, and for the first time all night, she looked like the person who had left me 8 years earlier. Not because she was cruel, because she was lost. "I was wrong about you." I heard the words, but they didn't give me the satisfaction I thought they would. Years ago, I dreamed about hearing those words. I imagined how good it would feel. But standing there, with my wife beside me and my life behind me, they felt smaller than I expected. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means you no longer need the apology to move forward. "I hope you find peace, Vanessa." She looked up. "That's it?" I nodded. "That's it." She looked confused. After everything I said? I answered honestly. Those words mattered when I was still trying to become someone. I looked around the room, but I already became him. Olivia squeezed my hand, and I knew she understood. She had never loved me because of my company. She loved the man I was before anyone knew my name, the same man Vanessa failed to see. A few minutes later, Vanessa walked away from the conversation. Not dramatically, not with anger, just quietly. For the first time that night, she wasn't trying to control how people saw her. She was simply accepting reality. Daniel followed shortly after, but not before everyone noticed something. Vanessa was no longer holding his hand. Outside the ballroom, the cold Chicago air hit my face. I stood beside Olivia near the entrance. She looked at me. "You okay?" I thought about the night, the humiliation, the memories, the things I had carried for years. Then I looked through the glass doors at the ballroom behind us, at the people who once thought they knew my story. I think I finally closed a chapter. Olivia smiled. "No." She looked at me. "You finally stopped reading one." And she was right. Because the past only controls you when you keep returning to it. That night wasn't about Vanessa discovering I became a billionaire. It wasn't about proving my success. It was about realizing something much more important. The person I became was never created by the people who doubted me. He was created by every difficult morning I showed up anyway. Every failure I survived. Every moment I chose to continue. And that was something nobody could take away. 8 years after my divorce, I walked back into the same world that once judged me, but I didn't walk out as a winner. I walked out free. And sometimes, freedom is the greatest success of all. Months passed after the reunion. Life returned to normal. And that was something I appreciated more than I expected. Because after years of chasing success, I discovered something important. The best part of achieving your dreams isn't the moment everyone notices. It's the quiet mornings afterward. The mornings when you wake up and realize you no longer have to fight for a place in the world. You already built one. My company continued growing. New projects started. More people joined the team. More opportunities came. But my life didn't become louder. It became calmer. That was the difference. Before, I wanted success because I wanted people to believe in me. Now I had success because I believed in myself. One afternoon, I received a message from Vanessa. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I was angry, because I realized how different I felt compared to the man I used to be. 8 years earlier, a message from her could change my entire day. Now, it was just a message. She asked if we could meet. At first, I wasn't sure, but eventually I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop downtown. Not the same places where we used to celebrate achievements. Not somewhere expensive. Just a quiet place. Somewhere ordinary. Vanessa looked different. Not physically. Something deeper. The confidence she used to carry like armor was gone. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. I nodded. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." She smiled sadly. "I owe you an apology." I stayed quiet. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I wanted her to say what she needed to say. "I spent years telling myself I left because you weren't enough." She looked down. "But the truth is, I was looking for something outside of myself." She took a breath. "And I blamed you for not giving me something you couldn't give me." I listened. Because sometimes closure isn't about getting answers. Sometimes it's just accepting that the past happened. "I treated your patience like weakness," she continued. "I thought because you were quiet, you weren't strong." She looked at me. "I was wrong." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that." She wiped a tear. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we stayed together?" I thought about the question. The old me would have wondered. The old me would have imagined another life. But that version of me was gone. "No." She looked surprised. "Never?" I smiled. "I think everything happened the way it needed to." And I meant it. Because if Vanessa never left, I might never have discovered what I was capable of. If nobody doubted me, I might never have learned to believe in myself. If life had been easier, I might never have become who I am. We sat there quietly for a moment. Then Vanessa smiled. "You really are different." I laughed softly. "No." I looked out the window. "I think I finally became who I was supposed to be." We said goodbye after that. No anger. No bitterness. No unfinished business. Just two people who once loved each other, accepting that their paths had changed. That night, I went home to Olivia. She was sitting on the balcony overlooking the city. I joined her. She looked at me. How did it go? I sat beside her. Peaceful. She smiled. I knew it would. I looked at the Chicago skyline. All those years ago, I thought winning meant standing above the people who hurt me. I thought one day I would reach the top and finally feel satisfied. But I learned something better. The top isn't a place where you stand above others. It's a place where you finally stand comfortably within yourself. The world loves dramatic victories, the big announcements, the moments when everyone who doubted you has to admit they were wrong. But real victory is quieter. It's waking up without anger. It's sleeping without regret. It's loving without fear. It's knowing that even if nobody applauds, your life still has meaning. Vanessa once looked at me and saw a man who wasn't enough. She saw someone unfinished, someone who needed to prove himself. She was right about one thing. I was unfinished. But not because I was failing, because I was still becoming. And the person I became wasn't built in the moments when people were watching. It was built in the moments when nobody cared. The early mornings, the late nights, the failures nobody knew about, the times I wanted to quit but decided not to. That was where my real fortune was created. Not in the billions, not in the company, not in the contracts, in the character. Years later, people would ask me what my greatest achievement was. Some expected me to mention the company, the billions, the awards, the investments. But my answer was always the same. My greatest achievement was becoming someone I no longer needed to defend. Because at the end of the day, people can underestimate you. They can leave you. They can misunderstand you. But they cannot stop you from building. And sometimes, the person everyone counted out becomes the person nobody can ignore. Not because he wanted revenge. Because he chose growth. Because he chose patience. Because he chose himself. And that is the kind of success money can never buy.